Hello, welcome to Master Market. My name is Grady Arno. I'm an associate director here at Duke's Fuqua School of Business, and I'm excited to have an alum of our MQM program, Connor Wynkoop, with us today. And he is here to talk about his experience with Fox Robotics and everything that he's done since he's graduated from MQM in 2022. So, Connor, thank you so much for being here. If you could start with an introduction, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Grady. I'm pleased to be here. Like you mentioned, I graduated last year in the class of 2022 MQM program in the strategy track. Kind of before Fuqua, I was a mechanical engineering student at the University of Virginia. And then after graduating from the MQM program, I moved to Austin, Texas to work for a startup called Fox Robotics, where currently I'm a business intelligence analyst, but I got promoted. So when I joined originally, I was a data analyst.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the quick promotion. We'll get more into that in a little bit, but tell me a little bit about your role at Fox Robotics. What's that look like?
Yeah, so my current role is pretty cross-functional in nature, where I'm touching a lot of pieces within the company, predominantly the autonomy team, the hardware team, the manufacturing team, operations, and as well as the customer success teams. I help all these teams kind of get away from what I call the Stone Age, where it's like Excel documents and Slack messages and things like that, and kind of more into the information era where it's like real-time Tableau dashboards or just alerts that are pinging you in Slack, things like that. Kind of my job and my responsibilities currently consists of some data engineering work where I use APIs and Google Cloud to make data streams and whatnot. And then I also do Tableau dashboarding for internal and external reporting. So for internal reporting, it's a lot of like identifying KPIs or identifying defects on the robot in terms of like the hardware team to see where we can improve our design in the future. And then from like a software point of view, it's identifying error codes that are predominantly surfacing and kind of focusing our feature updates on whittling those down. And then external reporting, it's helping customers optimize robot usage so that they can get the most out of the product so that they're more likely to buy more of our robots in the future. I also talk to customers a lot about robot performance. So my original role was kind of a lot of talking to customers. So I still do a little bit of that, but it's not as much anymore. I speak at my company all hands meeting, which is like this big presentation every month where everybody from the leadership team, and then I'm not in the leadership team, but I kind of am just up there talking about the data because I can speak to it the best out of everybody. And then I also just do a lot of ad hoc analysis to help various members of the leadership team or anybody in the company, really.
And going a little bit more into that, how big is Fox Robotics, and what is the actual product that Fox Robotics has?
Yeah, so Fox Robotics is about 70 people. We have about 50 robots in the field. And when I talk about robots, we call it like the Foxbot, which is this autonomous driving forklift. So you can imagine like how Tesla is able to auto drive itself on roads. Our forklift is able to automatically drive itself in almost any environment inside a warehouse where we unload 18-wheeler trailers, or we can also load them. So that's kind of what our product does. And there's like a market where some robots have a predetermined path where they have to map point A to point B, but we don't really need that. And we can just say, you start here and you need to place stuff over here. And then the robot kind of thinks for itself and drops stuff off. So
Very interesting. Very cool. You use some technical jargon while you're talking about what your role looks like. So what does APIs stand for?
Yeah. So API is kind of like a thing that you need a token for, and a token is just basically a unique login so that you can pull data from whatever source you're asking for. And it comes to you in form of like a JSON file, which is like this hierarchical text structure, basically. And then you can pull different pieces of data from that and create like a database, and using SQL, you can query it and things like that.
Very cool. I see why they pick you to talk about the data aspect of it. So from day-to-day perspective, you talked a lot about what your role looks like. It's very, it seems like you have a lot of different responsibilities. So what's a day-to-day look like for you?
Yeah, so my typical day-to-day is a lot of customer interactions, kind of more in the morning, where I answer emails or attend customer meetings where they might be a bit confused about their robot performance. I also sometimes get on calls with some bigger companies to talk about calculating different metrics because we hand customers a raw data feed from our robot, and so they might have questions about how do I calculate like throughput, or how do I calculate how many errors have occurred over a given time period. So I go on calls and help them out with that. I create dashboards in Tableau for different departments, like I mentioned earlier. I do a lot of support tasks as well. So when our robots are acting a bit weird in the field, wherever they're operating, I got to kind of pull up information for that to help our support team figure out what's going on. And then I just do ad hoc queries from internal parties or even sometimes external parties. Yeah.
That's perfect. So you were talking about how there's multiple things going on throughout your day. You have multiple different responsibilities. So how do you manage all of those priorities that you have?
Yeah. So I'm not really too sure what it's like working in a big company, but at a startup, which is where I'm at, it's very random what can happen, very unpredictable. And so I could go to bed tonight thinking I don't really have anything to do tomorrow morning, and then I can wake up and then there's a bunch of fires that are going on. And so typically I manage my priorities in kind of a order of operation structure, where first I prioritize the needs of Fox's customers over everything. And so that's like support tasks. If a customer needs to hop on a call with me, if a customer needs information, that's what I do first, because I need to make sure I'm satisfying the customer's need. Because if I'm not, they're not happy with us, they might go to a competitor, and then I might not have a job in a year. So, we got to sell these things. And then if there's no pending customer requests, then I kind of make sure that I do the work that my boss has assigned to me. And if there's no work that I have, then I have like an analytics backlog that's stored in Jira, and people kind of put requests in there. And then when I have a bunch of free time, I just end up solving their tasks. So that's kind of how I'm cross-functionally addressing a lot of the company's analytics needs. And then if I get an ad hoc request, depending on how urgent it might be, depending on where it lies in that order of operations, then I'll address that like where it needs to happen, basically.
That's great to know. So tell me how you decided on Fox Robotics, and what was your goal before starting the program? You mentioned coming in with an engineering background and doing the strategy track. What was your goal before starting the program, and how did you decide on Fox Robotics?
Yeah, so before even attending the MQM program, I was a very like unhappy engineering student where I didn't like what I was doing at all. And so I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to have an internship during the summer that COVID hit, actually, where I worked as an industrial engineer at Rolls-Royce. And I predominantly with data. Like it was just a whole database internship where I was programming SQL and Python and whatnot. And I saw how powerful analytics are to a company. And that was kind of the first time I ever enjoyed doing kind of anything that wasn't like a hobby, you know? And so I was like, this is pretty cool. So I want to go pursue an analytics degree and then go help either a hardware or software company kind of impact the product the way I was doing at Rolls-Royce. So when it got time for me to graduate from the MQM program, I had a lot of options in front of me and what to do. And I kind of gauged, I had like a mental meter, I would say, about how much impact I could make from an analytics point of view. And I had a couple job offers from some Fortune 50 companies. And then I had Fox Robotics randomly, just a startup just in Austin. And I thought, why not try working at a startup? It's kind of risky. I saw that the actual product market fit for the product. And I was like, if this thing hits, it could be like really big, both professionally and monetarily for me. And so I just decided, why not take the risk? Because the Fortune 50 companies will kind of always be there. And if it doesn't work out, I can kind of go pivot over to that eventually.
You set yourself up well either way, which is really great to hear. And
Yeah.
was that internship with Rolls-Royce in your junior year?
Yeah, that was between my junior and my senior year
Great.
of, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving us more information about that. And you talked at the beginning about how you've been with Fox Robotics for a little under a year now, and you've already had a promotion. So, talk to us a little bit about how you're able to get a promotion so quickly and what your role looked like then and now.
Mhm. Yeah, so when I originally got hired by Fox Robotics, my formal title was Customer Success Data Analyst, which is a bit wordy, so I just shortened it to Data Analyst. But basically, with that role, I was a customer success manager and a data analyst, and then I would also travel on the side. And so I got hired to make dashboards for customers where I would highlight robot performance for them. And then I would go on weekly calls, like maybe 10, 15 calls a week, just talking to customers about their data and really understanding our product and the pain points of the customer. And then I would travel to customer sites sometimes, like across North America, basically, and just go to these obscure towns that nobody would ever go to in their right mind, like towns of 3,000, 4,000 people. That's like, this is not a vacation spot, you know? And so that was cool. But after about 3 months, I started to notice that our company had a lot of internal needs for analytical capability. And so I started networking internally with people and asking them about their needs from a data perspective. And it turned out that a lot of people needed access to real-time information because they would spend 5, 10 hours a week just creating Excel documents to share with themselves internally, where if I could spend like 3, 4 hours making a dashboard that's connected to a database, then they would never have to do that again. And so that kind of started the process of me moving my time away from the customer success team as a data analyst and moving into like a business intelligence analyst role. And that full promotion actually happened after we received a fundraising round in October. So that I was able to get promoted and have like a pay bump to boot. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And you've talked about how you were able to do a lot of networking to get this promotion. What is the office culture like? How open are they to new ideas, and how have you been able to make an impact in your short time?
Yeah, so Fox's culture, first and foremost, is very family oriented. You know, it's kind of like the team Fuqua aspect, which is one of the reasons I liked Fox as well when I went to go join them. Basically, from my first day in the office at Fox and through my interview process, I immediately felt comforted by people, and like they were genuinely excited about the product and they were excited about me. And they always reiterated to me that I need to take care of myself, whether that be mental health or physical health, before even like considering working on any given day. Because if I'm not 100%, then I'm not going to be able to like give my all to the product. And I thought that that was a very refreshing change from my like internship, where it was kind of like you need to perform, perform, perform. Now, given all that, Fox is also a meritocracy where you can take what you want if you're like responsible enough, and you can also do your original job function within reason. So like part of the reason why I was able to get promoted so fast was because of this meritocracy aspect of Fox, where I got promoted to do a small thing, and then I noticed that a way larger thing needed to happen. And I took it upon myself within the confines of my original job to build off of that and kind of take on a bigger slice of the pie than they'd originally envisioned for me. And if you compare that to like a bigger company, for instance, where you're hired to do a job and your job is to do the job, and then you get promoted after a year to get a little more responsibility, and then another year to get a little bit more. When I'm talking about impact and what you can make in an org with analytics and basically anything, I would say that, you know, a startup or something like Fox is just a way better environment for me, where I want to be able to do a bunch of different things at once rather than be really good at one thing. And then the last thing I'll add is that, you know, I don't have to pay for snacks at Fox, but at my internship, they had a vending machine and we were like, yeah, you got to pay for it yourself. So I don't know. I think that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. That's great. So it seems like you're really a go-getter, and I know that from working with you as a student in the MQM program. So what do your future goals look like? Have you thought more about that? Where do you see yourself going in the future?
Yeah. So I'm already making a pretty sizable impact at Fox from an analytical capability, but I want to increase my impact some more by potentially pursuing like a product manager role. And so I think I'm very intrigued by the idea of taking what I know analytically about like our robot and our company, and even what customers know, and tying that into kind of transitioning to a product manager role by being kind of what we call like a mini CEO of the product. And I'm going to try and become a product manager, but if I can't, then I'll probably just stay in my analytics, part of things from what I learned at MQM program. But I'm hoping to become a product manager one day. Yeah.
Very cool. That's great to hear. So last question for me. What would be one piece of advice you'd give to someone that wants to go into a startup?
I would say that you need to be comfortable not knowing what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis. Like if you want a job where this is your job description and you can clock in at 8, clock out at 5, and you're going to program SQL queries, or you're going to make dashboards all day, then maybe being in a startup isn't for you. But if you want a lot more responsibility and you're comfortable like bouncing around different things and helping out a lot of different people, then this might be for you, because the hours are longer sometimes and they're shorter other times. Whereas like a conventional job might be, you work your 40 hours and then you can just go do whatever you want with your life. But in a startup, it's very like all consuming in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Connor, for taking time to speak with us today and giving us more insight into Fox Robotics and what your day-to-day life looks like. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.